Okay, I'm calling the meeting to order. And let's see here. First of all, I just want to say that there's some issue with the audio tonight, so the person who is doing the recording asked us to make sure to speak into the microphone, especially if you're speaking at the podium too. That's where the minutes are going to be coming from. There's no video apparently tonight. And she asked me to do a call to order, I'm sorry, a roll call. So we've started the meeting, and then I just want to do a roll call, which would be, okay, I'm here, Sharon Johnson. Brian Downey?
Present.
Okay. Glenn Terry?
Here.
And Gerald Tia?
Here.
Okay, I'm here, and Christina Pagnett and Corey Jorgensen are absent. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is swear in Planning Commissioner Gerald Tia.
Yes, this is the oath of office, so Gerald, please raise your right hand and read the statement aloud.
Do you need me to stand?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Why not?
Yes. All right, I, Gerald Tia, do solemnly swear to affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the state of Minnesota, and faithfully discharge the duty as a member of the City of East Bethel Planning Commission in the county of Anoka in the state of Minnesota to the best of my ability. So help me God.
Thank you. And if you'll sign that and give that to me at the end of the meeting, that would be great.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. All right, the next thing we're going to do is adopt the agenda, and I don't know if all of you got the revised one, but we had a public hearing for concept plan review for Friday Stables Estates, and that hearing is tabled to the January 27th meeting. Okay, so if anyone in the audience, I think they've all left, that wanted to be here. So is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Being none, the agenda is adopted. Okay, and we have a council liaison update, please.
Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to see you all again here. I'm Brian Mundle, your council liaison, and here is my report for December. Council has passed the final budget for 2026 with a 3.7 increase over the 2025 budget. That reflects the same budget as the preliminary budget that I was here presented in September, so nothing changed from that. All of the items from the last planning meeting was passed by council. So I think there's a couple CUPs and a couple other things. All those got passed. A review was performed on City Administrator Matt Look, and council extended his contract 1 year for 2026. At last night's council work meeting, we discussed the possibility of using a company for city newsletters for layout, printing, and mailing. Currently, city staff does all that work, but creating a newsletter in with the rest of the responsibilities can be difficult sometimes. Using a company for the newsletter would increase the cost for the newsletter, but they would come out more often and possibly in color. Council will have more discussions on this topic. We also talked about our city garbage services. Currently, there are 5 or 6 companies that service East Bethel. Council discussed reducing it to 1 or 2 companies and entering into a contract with them for a lower price for residents. The advantage of this is lower pricing for residents and less wear and tear on the city roads, having 1 or 2 trucks going down the roads versus 5 or 6 garbage trucks on a weekly basis. At this time, we are just discussing it and gathering information. No decisions have been made. So, the 10th Annual East Bethel Fire Department Breakfast will be on Saturday, January 31st from 8 to 11 in the morning. This annual event is put on by the Fire Department Auxiliary and will take place at Fire Station Number 1 on Viking Boulevard. The breakfast is sponsored by Route 65 Pub and Grub, who will be catering this event. I invite everybody out to that. It's short of Booster Day. It's another one of my favorite events in the city to get out, and there's a lot of neighbors that come out and to get a little tour of the fire station. There's some kid-friendly events, and all around, it's just a great event, a good excuse to get out on Saturday morning and have some good food. Is there any questions or comments? Okay. As we come to the end of another year in January, City Council changes up liaisons. If I'm not back next year, it has been an absolute pleasure serving as your Planning and Zoning Council representative. If there's ever anything I can do as a council member for you, please reach out. And with that, as always, thank you for your service to the city of East Bethel. Have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks you also, Brian, for being with us this year.
Absolutely. The Planning Commission is one of my favorite places to be since it's where I kind of started out. So it's always great to come back.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. And Brian, did you have something that you wanted to say on the minutes?
Yes, lines 10 through 15 were highlighted with some city staff that I don't recall being present during the last meeting. So I was curious as to why they were highlighted on the minutes.
Yeah, I agree too. And so we're just going to ask that those from Matt Look down to Mike Jaworski are stricken from the minutes as being here. Any others, Brian?
No, I didn't find any other corrections needed to be made.
Okay. Mr. Terry, you must have some.
I was not there, although
that's
I
true.
mentioned.
Okay. And I did actually read them all, and I didn't find anything else either. Okay. So, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
And I will second that. And any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? So that motion passes. Okay, I did want to mention for the people who came in a little bit later that there was going to be a public hearing for concept plan review for Friday Stables Estates, and that has been tabled to the next month. So if you're here for that, you can stay if you'd like, but we're not going to be doing that one tonight. Yeah, you're not here for that one? Okay, great. So the next thing is a public hearing, and Kendra is going to introduce that one.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This is a public hearing for a PUD concept plan for Cedarwood Estates. This is the manufactured home park. It includes 5 different PID numbers. The address is 18164 Highway 65. And on the screen is the location map for the property. You can see where the homes are today. The PUD would add this property where there's an existing apartment building that's rented, and this property for expansion of the park. the PUD also asks to modify the conditions or the standards for the setbacks within the park to decrease the nonconformity of some of the existing homes. So we'll walk through that. The property is shown highlighted in blue. That's both the existing park and the future park. That's zoned single and townhome residential. The guiding is consistent with that in the comprehensive plan. The park was permitted by the village of East Bethel in 1969. The city was then later incorporated, and in 1987, the city adopted manufactured home parks. The timing of that means that this manufactured home park is a legal nonconformity. Legal nonconformities can continue in perpetuity, but can only be modified in compliance with current regulations. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we walk through this. This was outlined in the staff report, but for the commissioners and the members of the audience, I'll go through that in more detail. The request tonight is to allow expansion of the park into those 2 parcels I just identified to include 33 new homes. That's part of, the park has recently sold, and the new owners would like to expand the park. The PUD concept is intended to get feedback on new standards that would apply both to those existing homes in the park today and the proposed expansion area. I would note that to the northwest of the park is a community septic. That parcel is not included in this park concept plan application. The community septic and shared well serves the entire park. The applicant has indicated that the system can accommodate the addition of 33 homes, but this area is in the MUSA, the urban service area, the area that's planned to get sewer and water. And so typically we would want, if possible, to add properties to the city system rather than allowing them to continue on a shared septic system. The applicant's narrative says they're open to that, but given financial constraints would want to talk about a phased system where perhaps, and they did not say this, I'm sort of suggesting this, maybe the new 33 homes when they come in connect to the city sewer and water, and we have a plan for over time how the remaining 178 homes that are there today could connect. That's something the Planning Commission may want to provide feedback on tonight. So the image on the screen is a little bit harder to read on the screen than it is on my screen, but on the left is an ALTA survey that was done to show the entire park boundary, both for the existing parcels and the 2 new parcels that would be added. I had asked the applicant for information about the existing, what I called in the staff report, unit lots. There are only 4 lots recorded at the county, but each of the homes has a lot that they lease from the park. And so this image was provided yesterday or today from the applicant showing where the existing homes were, at least at the time that this was done. And again, the expansion area is in this area where we show this apartment building and this area where we have the playground area. This shows that the wastewater plant is on this parcel. I'm not certain that's right. The applicant's representative is here. They may be able to answer that, but I think from our engineer that it may be on a different parcel that's separated from this. Some of you may recall that 17 and 125 came in a year ago and asked for variances for expansion. That is the typical standard. Anybody that wants to replace an older home with a newer, bigger home or a home that sits slightly different on the lot is likely to require a variance. The homes can stay there as they are in perpetuity, but once they come off the lot, the legal nonconforming protections are removed. So to bring a new home in requires a variance if they don't meet the setback requirements in the code. And it's unlikely that they could with a modern home. Somehow over the years, some homes, some lots have brought in double wides. I don't see any history of that in the city files, but you can see there's some larger lots here that perhaps maybe lots were combined. There's not a lot of history in our files, so I thought this was good information. It was not in your packet, but I wanted to share it tonight. So the applicant's narrative specifically requests PUD flexibility for lot size, lot width, and setback flexibility. And I think the PUD is the right approach to deal with this, and that is for a couple of reasons. Our code is written so manufactured home parks are only permitted in the B1 district. We have 2 manufactured home parks and neither are in the B1 district. So they're both legal nonconformities and wouldn't be allowed to improve those properties in the existing R2 district because it's a non-conforming use in the R2 district. So the PUD is essentially a custom zoning district that allows the city and the developer together to negotiate specific standards for this particular site. Unlike a zoning ordinance text amendment, which would apply citywide, this would only apply to this site. In this case, they would like to apply the flexibility to what they say is 178 existing lots. I think we need to confirm some of that, and the 33 new lots. The submittal did not clearly address the existing conditions. There wasn't a lot of information about what exists on site. There was some, but there was no way for us to identify whether their proposal would bring some, all, or none of those existing lots into compliance with if the new standards were adopted. And so if they were to move forward, one of the things I said in the staff report is a lot more information would be needed. So tonight we're kind of getting a feel from the Planning Commission because there's a lot of information missing. One of the things that concerns me a bit is that the expansion area shows lots for 16 by 76 foot wide homes. And I've spoken to the applicant's representative about that. They believe that that is a standard home. It looks small to me given other homes that are available, which can be for single wide homes, as 18 seems to be more standard in width. And it certainly doesn't accommodate double wide homes, which we have seen in recent years, folks in this park wanting to replace the existing homes with double wide homes. And it is not clear to me how that could happen. If it would be a combination of 2 unit lots, how that would happen. I don't know and how that could comply.
I'm sorry, Kendra, so you said that there are a number of indications that people are going to want the double wides?
Right, just the year I've been here, we've had people want to bring in double wides, which is probably not the industry standard term, so I apologize if there's a different term that the applicant could correct me, but I think we're familiar with that term. And you can look on the aerial and see there's a number of double wides. I counted about 26 in the park today. And so we can see that over time that's happened. So how do we allow that to happen in the future? Or don't we? I mean, it's certainly, right now what needs to happen is that any replacement needs a variance, and the city would have the discretion to say, unless it's the 16 by 76 that fits with the new standards, you can't bring a home in. And that might be okay. I just want to raise that issue. According to the applicant, what happens is the individuals will own those homes, but the owner of the park owns the land and leases it. That's fairly typical, but I had reached out to them just to confirm that. So the owner of the park will have some discretion about how those lots get allocated. In order to ensure, if we did move forward with a PUD, that the PUD applied to the entire park, we would want the entire property to be platted as a single lot. And then we would want some drawing that shows the unit lots. Now, it would not have to be platted at Anoka County as unit lots, individual lots. It would not necessarily need to be a CIC plat, which is a common interest community, one way to do unit lots with, for example, we do that a lot with townhomes. But we'd want something that showed how many lots are here and how will the homes fit on those lots. So if this application did move forward, we would expect to see that with a formal submittal. This image was included in your packet, so you can see this is the existing park, and these red squares are the homes that are proposed. So what's nice about the new homes is they are 16 by 76 foot homes. It does show off-street parking. Those are 36-foot-long driveways. So that's a positive. It brings the driveways actually onto the lot in a way that you can park 2 cars, potentially, on the lot. If you've been out there, you know that cars are parked on the streets and sometimes sort of just on the yard for some of the existing homes. So this is positive. They are shown with 20 feet between buildings, which is the applicant's request. One of the things I would highlight is, again, as I mentioned, this lot has an apartment building on it today that would be removed and replaced with new homes. This area has a playground on it. You can kind of see it right here on the aerial. And in our ordinance, manufactured home parks are required to set aside 15% of the land for recreation space for its residents. And if this is in fact the wastewater treatment plant that exhibit showed, there really isn't any place for recreation shown on this concept. And so I think that's important. This is a lot of folks in a small area, and so providing some of that private recreational space is important, and I would hate to see that land eliminated and not replaced. So that's something Commission could talk about. It's not shown as any open space on this plan. I outlined in the staff report the PUD standards in our code. I'm not going to repeat them now. I think Commission's kind of familiar with that, but for the audience, with a PUD, the city outlines certain standards that we expect, but the long and short of it is we expect, in exchange for the flexibility that the developer's asking for, some benefit to the city. It could be in terms of additional open space, additional landscaping, higher quality architecture, depending on the type of project. There's a number of things that could be considered a PUD benefit to offset the flexibility. And so at this point, we don't know what that might be, but that's something that would come in the next step that the applicant would need to provide. So a summary of the requested flexibility is on the screen. And again, our code requires a 30-foot setback between buildings, or a 30-foot separation, and a 30-foot front yard setback. The applicant's requesting a 20-foot front yard setback, which appears to be what actually exists there today, generally, and 20 feet between buildings. Again, sort of what's there today. I spoke to the fire chief and the deputy fire chief last week about the request, and they noted, and I put this in the staff report, the proposal does exceed the fire code requirements. The fire code is pretty limited in its standards for this. It does exceed the standards the state adopted with the Department of Health in terms of setbacks, which are quite minimal. And so while the fire department certainly would always prefer more space between buildings, there was nothing that they objected to strongly with the proposal. However, again, I would just say it is a deviation from our manufactured home park standards, which are not in our zoning ordinance, but in a different section of our code. We talked a little bit about parking. The new parking, or the new lots, clearly show parking, and I think do a nice job of providing the required parking. They indicated in their narrative that there's plenty of parking for the existing lots, but it's not clear where and how those will be provided. So we would certainly want to see that we do have 2 parking spaces for each lot. Something that also wasn't talked about is that nearly every home in the park either has a deck at the front door and or a storage shed somewhere on the lot. And many of those appear to be non-conforming. Not legal non-conforming, but just non-conforming, not permitted, not in compliance with the code. So we would want to make sure that if we were to adopt a new PUD, the applicant clearly outlined how those things would be accommodated. It certainly is very common with manufactured home parks to have a small shed, just for your shovel and just basic lawn mowing things, just We all have stuff. So that should be shown on the plans in a way that could comply with the setback requirements. There is in the building code a setback requirement from the primary home to that shed, and then setbacks from that shed to the lot lines. So we'd need more information about that. Also, as you probably noticed looking at the plans, there's a lot of stuff in the MnDOT right-of-way. There are homes in the MnDOT right-of-way. There's a driveway in MnDOT right-of-way. We have nothing in our files about that, but I suspect MnDOT does not approve of structures in their right-of-way. And so we would want to have the applicant obtain MnDOT approval or remove those structures. Now, the driveway that's there, my experience is MnDOT's likely to be open to an encroachment agreement, which means the applicant can use that right-of-way for the driveway, but I suspect MnDOT will want those homes removed. The utilities we did talk about, the applicant has indicated a willingness to abandon the shared septic and well and consider a phased connection to city sewer and water. The engineer has noted that stormwater ponding is likely to be required as they're expanding the site. If you disturb an acre or more, you are required to do stormwater ponding. That's not shown clearly on the plan, so that's something we'd need to review. And then a wetland delineation and a MNRAM, which is a wetland analysis, would be required as part of a formal application to ensure that no wetlands are being impacted and that wetland buffers are provided. The park I mentioned already would be eliminated, and so we do recommend that a park be maintained somewhere on site for resident use. Again, I think this is important, which is why I'm repeating it. This park is a legal non-conforming use. It was approved prior to the city incorporating and prior to the city adopting an ordinance, which means structures and improvements that were there when the park was approved and prior to adoption in 1987 of our new ordinance would be allowed to continue in perpetuity. They can do normal maintenance but cannot expand. They cannot replace those homes with new homes unless those new homes comply with the ordinance requirements. So the use itself, the park, is a legal non-conforming use. The homes are non-conforming structures legal non-conforming structures because they do not meet setback requirements. Some of the structures, like I mentioned, some of those sheds are probably not legal non-conforming structures, but are illegal non-conforming structures that would not have protection if they were, for example, to burn down or be removed. So the applicant's requesting flexibility for setbacks, but I think they will also need flexibility from lot coverage and lot size minimums potentially, from parking location and area requirements, from buffering and site screening requirements. Our code requires screening around the exterior of the site, from street width requirements for the private drives potentially, for open space and recreation requirements if they don't provide 15% open space, potentially phasing for utility connections. And again, that's with a PUD, that's one of the city's discretionary things. The city could require connection to municipal sewer and water as a requirement of the PUD, but could consider a process to provide it over time. Other PUD flexibility may be required or requested. Again, with the information we had, there may be something I missed. We just didn't have all the information. Again, the applicant noted in the application, this is longstanding affordable housing in the city. The applicants note that the land has been purchased by a new owner who wants to, while maintain it as affordable housing, make improvements to it. And frankly, the only way to do that would be through some change to the code through the PUD. So tonight, again, we did not, there's so much going on here. I did not give you draft resolutions. You know I normally do that, but there's just a lot going on. You do have the ability to recommend approval or denial. And through the long staff report. I think I've given you some findings for and against, but tonight I would say, really, we're looking for feedback from the commission, and I can summarize that and provide that to the council at their meeting. So we wouldn't be looking necessarily for adoption of a resolution, but feedback about questions, concerns, and recommendations. This is a lot in the staff report. I tried to summarize it, but I'm happy to answer any questions before we open the public hearing, Madam Chair.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you. That was really detailed, and I did read every word of it. And there was a lot of work in that, so thank you for all of that. I did have a question about the sale. Has the sale of those two pieces where the apartment building is and the one that's, I think, in the north, has already occurred?
I believe so. The ownership is the same across the board. Again, I know the applicant's rep is here and confirm that, but just looking at the county data, they are all under the same ownership. Yes.
Okay. I saw Glenn writing a lot, and there's a lot of writing here too, so, and I've got a lot of questions. Do you guys want to go with yours? And
We should open the public hearing probably.
so you don't have anything of Kendra yet? Nothing specifically, you guys?
Oh, yeah, I just have a couple. So basically, are they going to apply for a variance since they already have like a structure on the land already before they build the new buildings?
Madam Chair, Commissioner, they, instead of asking for a variance like they've done in the past, what they'd like to do is apply for a PUD, a planned unit development, which is a negotiated zoning district, which established new standards, so they don't have to apply for a variance every time.
Okay.
And so, and again, just for the commissioners and for the audience, before we open the public hearing, we have this time with the commission just to answer any substantive questions that might be helpful for folks at the public hearing.
I did have a kind of administrative question too about the variances. In your report, you said that variances have come in front of the staff. I remember the one for, was it lot 17 and lot whatever? But other than that, do you guys routinely get variance requests that don't even make it to the planning commission?
We get requests for variances a lot, but they tend to fall apart just as they look at, the cost and the standards for a variance and how
Okay.
we review it. So we haven't had one come in, but I've talked to a couple people in the last year. One was wanting to replace a single wide trailer with a double wide, and we talked about the setback variances that would be needed. And another one more recently was someone who wanted to add an accessible ramp on their deck, and also that's a deck, so it needs to meet setbacks, would also need a variance. Neither of those proceeded to an actual application.
Okay, so it's not taking, is it taking a lot of staff time right now? This property?
I wouldn't say a lot of staff time. No, I don't think that's true, but we've had a number of questions about it.
Okay. Brian, did you have anything for Kendra? Before we go on to the public hearing?
There was a lot of things that were proposed in the concept plan that weren't clearly defined or not shown. So as if the commission were to speak to these, are those things that could be amended later on if this does move forward? Or is it something that if the concept plan moves to the next stage, those are no longer able to be negotiated?
Great question, Commissioner. So this is really interesting because concept plans are truly advisory. We do hold public hearings, but they're advisory. In this case, there's a lot of missing information. So one thing that I think I put in the summary is, the applicant could take this feedback and say, okay, we heard that you want more information, and come back with a new concept plan before a formal application. They may find value to that because you could still get a lot of the information without a fully engineered plan. If they took the feedback and wanted to come in with a formal submittal, they could do that, but they run the risk of you saying, well, we didn't talk about that, you didn't tell me about that, and we're not okay with that. That's a risk that they would run.
Okay.
I was on the same page with that too, and that, there's just so much stuff here that I was thinking that staff is going to have to negotiate a lot of this stuff without us going into every little detail. So, okay. Well, I think I will open up the public hearing then. And if anyone would like to come to the podium to speak about this issue or answer our questions, I'd appreciate it. And please come on up. And please state your name and address. And please speak directly into the microphone, especially tonight.
Thank you and good evening, Commissioners. My name is Craig Hardy. I'm an attorney at Larkin Hoffman. I'm here on behalf of the applicant Continental Communities LLC, who, as Ms. Lindahl noted, is the owner and operator of the manufactured home park known as Cedarwood Estates. And before I do anything, I'd just like to thank Ms. Lindahl for all of her hard work in putting together the materials. It's been very helpful to us to have her engagement and her assistance while working through this. So before you today is a planned unit development concept plan. And, there's a lot of discussion from Ms. Lindahl about, the missing information, obviously. And we fully recognize that there is a lot of information that's missing right now. So our primary objective, kind of tonight and going through this concept plan process is to just get feedback from the Planning Commission about what the big picture looks like. Whether there's an appetite to allow expansion and to allow improvement at this park. We're really looking for the big picture to see whether, one, it's worthwhile to hammer out all the details and figure out what the existing conditions at the site are, obtain a survey, obtain detailed site plans, engineering drawings. All those things are, sort of contingent on the city's perspective as far as, how feasible this project would be moving forward. So that's the feedback that's very, very valuable to us tonight, is just feedback regarding, whether there's a willingness to embrace reduced setbacks for this property, to allow improvement and to allow expansion of the property. So I just wanted to lead with sort of that. That's our objective really tonight, is to get a taste for what the commission's willingness is for the big picture. But I will start with just a little bit of history as well. I know Ms. Lindahl had noted some of it, but my client purchased Cedarwood Estates in November 2021. This park has been in existence for 50 plus years, as Ms. Lindahl had noted. Special use permits were issued for Cedarwood Estates, which was formerly known as Village Green, in 1970 and 1971. And back in 1987, as Ms. Lindahl noted, the city adopted ordinance number 142, which codified what is now Chapter 38 of the City Code related to regulations for manufactured home parks. Many of the standards that are adopted are more restrictive than state standards in the existing conditions at Cedarwood Estates. I can say that, generally speaking, the existing conditions more or less conform to what we've requested as the proposed setbacks. That's not true across the board. I will say, just because of the history of this property, and as Ms. Lindahl noted, sort of the lack of city records related to planning and zoning, there are certainly properties that it's not true across the board, that these setbacks are all uniform throughout what we've requested here. So one of the huge benefits, certainly, of a planned unit development zoning specific for this property is to figure out what all of those existing conditions are, memorialize them so that the property is brought into compliance with the city code, and unit owners can seek to improve their manufactured homes, and we can also seek to expand into other areas of the park. So the planned unit development framework, from our perspective and in discussions with Ms. Lindahl, was realistically the only path forward to bringing this park back into compliance, while also allowing for pretty limited expansion. So currently, and as Ms. Lindahl noted as well, there are state administrative rules that set very minimal setback requirements that the property does meet pretty much across the board. Ms. Lindahl had also noted that the requested setbacks would comply with the existing fire code at this time, which we believe is a benefit for the safety of this property and obviously a health and safety concern that the city may have. But what we are truly proposing is a roadmap that is very specific to this property. And, you know, what we hope to do is achieve 10-foot setbacks along 181st Avenue Northeast and all private streets, 10-foot setbacks for the rear of all sites, and 20 feet of separation between the sides of manufactured homes. And as Ms. Lindahl noted, this will certainly require flexibility to lot sizes, rear setbacks, distances between homes, percentage of lot occupied, open space requirements that exist under Chapter 38. So those are all things that we are more than willing to look at as this process moves forward. And admittedly, we do not know all of the details today, like I mentioned. And that's something that we're hoping to get feedback from the Planning Commission on, is whether there's an appetite for some of those reduced setbacks and that flexibility. So one of the other, fairly big aspects of this project will be connection to municipal sewer and water services. It's frankly just cost prohibitive from my client's standpoint at this time to connect all units within the property as well as expanded sites. We've sort of ran the numbers and done assessment before, and I think just the SAC availability charges would be probably upwards of $1 million. It would simply, be cost prohibitive to do that in one fell swoop. So what we would strongly propose and advocate for, if the Planning Commission or if the city were to require connection to municipal services, would be to pursue a phased approach. And, we would be willing to, likely connect the expanded sites right away to municipal services and then, set some sort of definite timeline and a defined timeline to connect the existing units to those services as well. So truly one of the overarching themes or overarching requests from my perspective is we're seeking flexibility from the code standards to foster reinvestment into this property. And I drove through the property on my way here, and I was struck by just how nice of a manufactured home park it is. It's well maintained. We're willing to, as Ms. Lindahl noted, pursue updated landscaping standards as part of this. And, it's required that there's flexibility to be able to improve and expand this park at this point. And that's where the planned unit development framework comes in and could be very important. And I would also note the other policy goal and one of the consistencies with the comprehensive plan is the fact that this is an important source of affordable housing stock, certainly within the city. The Metropolitan Council has noted that the availability of this type of housing is an important asset to the community. There's currently more than 14,000 households within the region's manufactured home parks, yet no new parks have opened since 1991 and 12 parks have closed in that same time frame. So this park, expanding obviously increases the city's stock of affordable housing, and improving the sites as well, is a huge benefit to the community, I think, and to unit owners in the city at large. But in sum, and I would just kind of conclude with this, and then I'm happy to take questions and hear your feedback. But I think the PUD concept plan has really three significant benefits. The first would be expansion and improvement of affordable housing within the city. The second would be a new set of standards obviously would limit the need for variances. If a unit owner wants to add a patio or a deck, the new set of standards wouldn't require them to obtain a variance. And I think that would likely lessen the burden on staff time and certainly the administrative burden for the city. And then obviously the concept plan, in my view, allows the city to have some buy-in in what the phasing will look like for connection to municipal services. I'm thinking that the connection to the expanded sites, is an effective way for us to pursue this, but I'm interested to hear the commission's feedback. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to take any questions or hear your guidance or feedback.
Well, thank you very much. If you could just stay up here then. And it's Craig, and your last name is Hardy?
That's right.
So just in case you gentlemen want to address him by his name. You guys go ahead.
Madam Chair, should we close the public hearing before we ask applicant questions?
Is that standard? Because normally
We probably should close the public hearing and then have him back up and answer questions.
Okay. So before we close the public hearing, then I'm going to ask if anybody else would like to come up and speak to this issue.
Hello, my name's Artie Anderson, 3504 190th Lane, East Bethel. I would think we'd want to kind of separate these issues. I mean, you got PUD for the expansion, I believe is fine, but the non-conforming, I think they need to come in with a better plan because there's a lot there and we've had issues with this prior. So I think they need to come to the plate with a better plan on that. The septic system isn't in that corner. It's back on 25 acres, kitty corner to the regular sewer plant that the city owns. So they've got to cross, their pipe crosses another property, Sauter Brothers land, to get to their sewer system. So that's an issue there. As far as the code, he talks about the fire chief and all that, about the state code, that's one thing. We would have to change city code, because city code says it completely different. So,
For the fire code? Or
no, fire code's one thing. The city already has a code, that's why it's stricter. We have a code there. We would have to change that to conform to the state if we wanted to. Evidently, at the time when they put the code in, they wanted a stringent code in there, so. Another issue I got is on that back stretch of homes there, the road. You're coming to a dead end. Your emergency services gotta go down that road and they're gonna have to back out. Fire trucks, everything. It's going to create one big mess. There should be a cul-de-sac or some way they ramp that back into the existing project to help the emergency services there, because you're going to have a mess. And then remember, we have 2 trailer courts in this city. What we do on this one, the other one's going to be knocking at the door too. Thank you.
Thank you, Artie. Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to come and speak about this issue? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing. Okay, and now, Kendra, so we can ask.
Yep,
Mr. Hart.
you can chat amongst yourself and you can ask Mr. Hardy to come back up to answer questions from the commission.
Okay, I think I'd like to ask you to do that right away, because we have questions, but
Yeah, absolutely.
I think if you guys want to go ahead with your questions first of all.
My question isn't actually for the attorney, but more general statement or more for staff. We usually use a PUD because there's something that the city actually wants to derive from development that will benefit the city. All I've heard are a lot of compromise of our standards in order to have this somewhat nebulous improvement and expansion as a benefit. But I don't see how the city is going to benefit from any of this if we perpetuate in a zone where this shouldn't even be, by zoning, a non-compliant set of setbacks. I don't see why we would want that and what the benefit of using a PUD to obtain that would be for the city. I mean, I understand that's the only way we could get around all these different setbacks, but I don't see how that helps us as a city. And the affordable housing aspect, that's the Met Council, that's not the city crying out to have more of that. So anyway, I just don't really see the benefit in this plan, and plus, there's not much we can do tonight with such incomplete presentation, other than just give our feedback like I've just done. Like what is compelling? I mean, already there's no plan currently to have a park, and you're adding more homes. So it's like going from maybe not so great to worse to get rid of the one park. There should be some expanded park with adding more families there. If any of this goes through, I do want to see a way for these homes to be able to have decks or sheds without having to go through a variance process. But that isn't achieved by creating these small setbacks. So it would be my recommendation to try and make something work with the setbacks that we have, rather than trying to perpetuate already non-compliance with all the other existing ones and then doing more of the same with the expansion.
Could I offer some comment?
Sure.
So your feedback about decks and sheds without variances, I simply think it's just impossible with how the property is currently set up. I don't see a way, and perhaps Ms. Lindahl could correct me if she has a different perspective, but with how the lots are currently arranged, and given the city's current setback requirements under Chapter 38, I don't see a realistic plan that could show these lots with the decks and sheds meeting the setback requirements at present.
Right, I was only referring to the addition, not the existing ones, because
Sure.
that's already, it's a difficult thing.
Yeah, and with the expanded sites, one thing I'd just like to offer is that we're more than willing to revise the plans. Like, for example, the open space requirement, and the fact that 13 of these homes are shown as going on a spot where there's currently a playground and recreation area. I think my client would be willing to, if not forgo, those 13 expanded sites, then think of a creative solution to situate them elsewhere, or to ensure there's open space provided for residents. The concept plan that's been submitted, I don't think my client is intending to be bound by it as the only plan as part of this proposal. So that's something that we're certainly willing to work with city staff on. One request I would have is for feedback or guidance as to whether the planning commission or the city would be willing to reduce the currently 15% required open spaces as part of the plan unit development, or whether that would be firm. That would be very beneficial to my client and in developing more detailed plans and sort of knowing what to work off of. As far as the benefits to the city, I think there is just simply value in establishing new standards for a long-standing park that is very well maintained and provides a very important source of affordable housing within the city. And the city's comprehensive plan and the guidance from it emphasizes that currently there isn't a whole lot of affordable housing within the city of East Bethel. And this is one of the sources of it, for lack of a better word. So I think there is value in ensuring that this manufactured home park is allowed to, obviously it's allowed to continue in perpetuity just the way it is. What we're proposing is to make it better, to site new homes where there are homes that are aging, to expand the park, to include newer, more modern manufactured homes. And certainly, we are willing to negotiate as part of a development agreement, or, what be it, landscaping for the park, increased buffering from adjacent properties. There's a whole host of things that we'd be willing to get creative in pursuing as part of this. And that's where we would just love the guidance of the Planning Commission to find some ideas or some creative solutions.
Anything else for you?
I'll let others
Okay.
speak.
All right, well, I'll speak up, and I'm just one voice.
Yeah.
I'm probably a dissenting voice also, but, I mean, I really applaud you, and I think it's great to be able to try to put in more affordable housing in the city. So that's just my opinion. I think a PUD is definitely needed, a way to go, rather than trying to fit, square peg into a round hole, as we were doing with Lot 17 and whatever the other one was. I don't know if that's even ever happened yet, but I do have some questions. Let me see here. With the sewer for the new ones, I think that's really, really important for the groundwater quality to make sure that you hook up new units for the sewer. Do you know what the sewer cost is going to be for those?
For the 13 expanded sites? I don't have an exact figure. It would be far less, obviously, than connecting the entire park at one time. Those rates are derived from the Metropolitan Council, as I understand it. And that's something we are willing to explore, what the actual cost of connecting just those, the 33 expanded sites to municipal services. If you think about the fact that connecting roughly 174 to municipal services, we had previously estimated it likely be upwards of $1 million. A portion of that, 33 out of 174, we would have to imagine it would be probably in the hundreds of thousands, but not $1 million. So that's, feedback we are certainly willing to receive is, whether a phased approach would be considered by the city. And I think that's something that my client would be willing to do is agree to connect the expanded sites and then set some sort of defined timeline that the city can certainly hold us accountable to, as far as, connection to 50 sites has to be by 2031. Connection to 100 sites has to be by 2033, something like that. And we can get creative, and we'll obviously have to think about what's fiscally responsible from our perspective, but we're willing to work with the city on those issues.
Yep. Well, and eventually they're going to have to go into lease payments anyways, aren't they, for that? When you're taking that apartment building down, do you know how many units are going out? I mean, 'cause that's affordable housing too.
So there's 3 units
Okay.
currently in that apartment building. I've heard from my client that that property is declining and that it's, a bit run down, probably one of the more rundown aspects of the park. And that's certainly, the leases, I think 2 out of the 3 units in that apartment building are currently leased. I'm not sure the time period for when they're leased, but I assume
So
it's on a
you're not
yearly
taking out
basis.
20 units or anything like that and replacing it with 33?
No, yeah, it would be, 3 is the extent of the rentable units in that building.
Okay. So Kendra was talking about, that she's seeing that an 18-foot wide unit is more typical of the 16, but you're talking about the 16 is what's going in for those 33 new houses, right? I mean, is that realistic?
Yeah, from our perspective, we do believe that the 16 by 76 foot single wide manufactured home is pretty in line with what the industry standard is as far as single wide homes. If you think about the fact whether people prefer double wide homes versus single wide homes, I'm sure they probably prefer double wide homes. But that also raises an affordability factor as well. Double wide homes, more square footage is certainly less affordable. I connected with my client about what, for example, a 16 by 76 foot manufactured home would retail for, what somebody would be able to purchase it for right away. And, we expect that they would be around $100,000, if not a little bit more than $100,000 for a 16 by 76 foot. And certainly that's a fraction of the cost of, many other forms of housing if you want to have ownership in the home you're purchasing. This is probably going to sound like a broken record, but as far as the housing sizes, I think we're also willing to explore, whether we could get creative and create larger lots to accommodate double wide homes, or, perhaps whether the single wide homes that we're proposing, whether they can be manufactured as larger sizes as well. So if that's something that the commission would like to see is larger homes, then we'll certainly note that feedback.
Okay. Like Glenn, I'm really interested in preserving the recreational space also. To me, that's really, really important. What do you have as a timeline for putting in the 33 new units or homes?
Well, we fully anticipate that the land use process with the city will be long. As Ms. Lindahl noted, it would likely be a requirement of the city, if this is to move forward, that the entire lot be platted as one lot, the entire property be platted as one lot. And certainly we would have to put together some detailed engineering drawings and just gather a whole bunch more information that I expect would take us most of the spring, if not into the summer, to simply get to a point where we're ready to move forward with the next steps, which would be, as I understand it, a PUD rezoning and a preliminary plat application. So there's a built-in timeline there as well. But assuming that everything goes great and we get the approvals we need from the city, I think they're ready to move on the expansion pretty quickly after approval.
Okay. Can you comment on, are there actually homes in the MnDOT right away, or just the sheds?
Yeah, I believe there are portions of homes that are in the MnDOT right-of-way along Highway 65, which is a product of certainly developing nonconformities over time at this property. 50-plus years, obviously, that this property has been in existence. So I believe there are portions of manufactured homes that exist within the MnDOT right-of-way. Most of it is the driveway area, for example, but we're willing to certainly follow up with MnDOT as far as, I agree with Ms. Lindahl that if I'm MnDOT, I probably won't want manufactured homes in my right-of-way either.
Yeah. Do you think you're opening up a can of worms and they may have to be removed?
Well, as they exist, they're legal non-conforming uses. I would imagine that they would be allowed to stay in perpetuity for that reason, but it's obviously possible that MnDOT could ask that we remove those, and then you're in a legal dispute.
Unless they made some changes to the road.
Yeah.
Okay. Artie did ask about the emergency vehicles getting in. Is that being addressed in your plan?
It can be. The plan as submitted right now, it certainly does not address that, fully candid. But we can certainly address that with, whether it is working with the fire chief and fire staff to figure out, whether there are emergency vehicle access issues with, for example, that dead end at the northern end of the property. And perhaps Ms. Lindahl can speak to this as well, but I noted in her fire report, in the staff report, that at least the setbacks existing within the property don't prevent a fire code issue. But I would be interested to hear feedback from the fire chief and staff about whether that could be a condition of approval as well.
So just one final comment from me is I would be in favor of going to the state standards, not the fire code, but the kind of the setbacks. It's just my opinion on that. I have a lot of questions and opinions on this, and I don't know if they're all going to get into the minutes. Kendra, how do we handle that?
Well, I'm taking notes and we are taking the minutes. Do you mean in the minutes or in the recommendation to council?
Um, I, I don't know, I guess, well, you're just looking for opinions, right? And so I'm giving you my opinions by asking you questions or by stating them. And I just want to make sure that somehow they're memorialized, that you understand what my opinion is. And
Absolutely.
Glenn's.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm taking notes myself. I plan to go back and listen to certainly this meeting to make sure I capture everything that was said by all commissioners. But if there's a way that I can certainly assist to memorialize some of the comments and feedback you've provided, or that Commissioner Terry has provided, I'm certainly willing to help or assist in any way, if it would be beneficial for the council.
Well, and Madam Chair, we have 3 of our council members here tonight hearing it live, and so we'll do our best to summarize the comments at the end of the meeting for the council packet. And for anyone in the audience or at home, we do tape the meeting so people can listen, and then we will have minutes available that are fairly detailed minutes that we do by standard, so.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you very much for your feedback.
Thank you. Brian?
Yeah, you and Glenn have touched on a number of things that I wanted to inquire about. The setback, 20 feet between homes is,
If I can just interject briefly.
I guess I was gonna get more to, has your client considered the 30-foot distance between homes in any of their planning?
Sure, they certainly have. The only realistic thing is that the 30 feet would have to only apply to the expanded home sites. There's really no way to get code compliance with how the code's written currently for the 170 odd existing homes. So, if that's a sticking point for the commission is the 30-foot in between manufactured homes, that's certainly something that we would consider and discuss from an internal standpoint. Certainly that affects the amount of homes that you can locate on the property, which in turn affects really the benefit you're providing for affordable housing. But it would reduce the amount of homes you could locate within the expansion. And I would note that the state of Minnesota standard is 10 feet in between homes, which is obviously a third of what the city code currently provides for. But the short answer after the long answer to that question is that we would certainly consider it.
Okay. The plan has, you mentioned flexibility, and that is including lot size, setbacks, parking, parks, open spaces, street width, and I'm kind of getting the impression that you're kind of looking for what sort of wiggle room you have with these requests. As far as the driveways go, 36 feet long. The existing conditions, would those be just left then as they are, and the new expansion area would then get this 36-foot long driveway feature then?
So the expanded sites would certainly have the 36-foot long driveway. The existing sites, the proposal as it sits right now is to not alter those driveways. If, for example, this property does become a planned unit development, and there's some flexible standards that allow us to, look at changes to the existing driveways that are fully code compliant within the planned unit development standards, I think that'd be certainly something that we would look at doing. But the planned unit development proposal as it stands, at least right now, is to memorialize the existing conditions for the existing sites while, obviously ensuring the expanded sites meet the new set of standards as well. So I hope that answers your question, but.
Yeah, kind of. For the expanded sites then, with this narrower street width and longer driveways, would there be some sort of way to enforce no parking on the streets, or would that just be an honor system?
It could certainly be a aspect of the new standards within the planned unit development. Certainly there could be standards about off-street parking or on-site parking within, whatever the city and my client settles on as far as what are agreeable standards that can apply to this property. So I think that's certainly something that could be fleshed out in, either a development contract between the city and my client, or the actual language of the planned unit development.
Okay. Yeah, as far as emergency vehicles, usually there's more than one when there's an incident. So I could see how a narrower street with more than one of those vehicles present might really stop things up if there's not throughways or adequate roadways set up.
Certainly. And I was just going to pull up the drawing, and it's hard for me to tell, but, so for example, this is going to be difficult, but one of the extensions of the streets that's being proposed to serve 20 of these expanded sites sort of on the eastern portion of the property. One of those expanded streets is 40 feet in width, which I understand meets the code requirements of Chapter 38. And Ms. Lindahl can certainly correct me if I'm wrong on that. But I believe both of these street extensions are 40 feet in width, which would be code compliant. That I do not believe would be true, for example, the frontage road that is sort of parallel to Highway 65. But at least in the extension of the street that serves 20 of these homes, I note that there's a 40-foot width there.
The northwest street is the new northwest street is 32 feet. The new eastern street is 40 feet wide,
Thank you for that.
which is wider than city streets. 32 is a standard city
Pardon me.
street. I was getting buzzed for my answer.
The emergencies. Okay. And then the park space, it sounds like that would just be provided as your client felt was needed. The residents, I'm sure, under Chapter 38, there's open space requirements, so that would be provided once this moves forward, or?
Certainly. And one of the aspects of guidance that I'd be interested to still hear comment on, perhaps from all commissioners, is whether there's any wiggle room for reducing that to 10%. If the answer is no, that's the feedback I need. But certainly, if the framework of the planned unit development is in line with what's currently required under Chapter 38, then we would have to do so as part of the plan moving forward. And if it's 15%, then we have to get to work on finding a solution and a workable plan that will allow for that.
There's just a lot of could be's and should be's, and maybe it's just it seems like there's a lot that could take place, and so I think that it would be nice if some of these undefines, these unclears, not showns, not mentioned or provided, could be filled in so that there could be a little bit more definition in the give and take that might come of this arrangement between your client and the city. That's all I have for now.
I appreciate the
Great.
feedback.
Thank you. Gerald, do you have any comments, opinions on this?
Yeah, just a few. I'm sure it seems that we are on the same line. Just I want a bit more information because I'm missing quite a bit. I keep like rewriting the same thing. And so, for example, the 16 by 74 is that almost like a set a figure that because you are having like a longer driveway, is it possible to reduce the driveway and expand the home, or is that something that you guys just want to build more homes with that size instead of building maybe less homes? That's something that I'm interested in knowing about. And I think you mentioned a few times you want the city to be more and more flexible. What exactly the the flexibility that you're looking for? You mentioned something about reducing some for 10%, and that will affect the PUD as well. So basically, it's the city will be affected at that point if we reduce that. So I just want a little bit more information on what you mean by you want to say it to be more flexible.
Sure.
So these are some of the information that I need, but yeah, certainly I need more details on these plans.
Thank you for that, those comments as well. And from our perspective, the flexibility comes from the reduced setbacks. So currently, Chapter 38, mandates, certainly 30 feet in between manufactured homes, for example. Here, we're looking for 20 feet in between manufactured homes. The city code also has, rear yard and front yard setbacks, for example. And as part of this proposal, and I want to say, what page of it is Ms. Lindell's? It's page 2 of Ms. Lindell's staff report, but as you can see there, Ms. Lindell goes through obviously what's required currently under the city code, under Chapter 38. The second column is proposed requested. That's obviously what our proposal, at least what we've submitted so far, is looking for as far as reduced setbacks. And the third column is sort of, vaguely what the existing conditions are, but, as we've sort of discussed, the existing conditions are subject to a survey or a more detailed site plan, exactly figuring out what the existing conditions are. So that's sort of the flexibility that this proposal requests from the city, and specifically to setbacks, and certainly there will be some other effects within Chapter 38 as well, such as lot sizes. For example, the lot sizes that are currently proposed are about 3,800 square feet. The city code mandates 7,800 square feet. So there's flexibility there that we would certainly have to see based on the concept plan that we've put forward. What I'm getting the sense is that, one thing I think I've heard somewhat across the board is that the size of the homes potentially, if those homes were to be larger or the lot sizes were to be larger, I would just frankly ask the commission whether that would be more supportable for this proposal.
Well, that's basically what I have so far for that. So,
Thank you.
I'm wondering if this has to be treated as the whole property as one PUD if we were going with a PUD, or whether it could just, the PUD could just refer to the expansion.
I can certainly offer a preliminary comment on that. I'm not sure if it's directed
Well,
at Ms.
I
Lindell.
understand you come in here with a desire to take a non-conforming legal thing where everything is way too small and try and codify that into a standard for that property. I'm not real big on that idea to begin with, and then, because it's a quality of life issue, and you don't have any plan for the park that would be removed, you're adding 33 more homes under this plan to what's already a pretty crowded site with no thought of we're going to have a park for these people. So I'm trying to, I don't see any benefit at all to, other than to the owner, to codifying what's existing. And so that's why I'm asking if just the expansion could have PUD.
So the reason I don't think you can is because, as proposed, that fifth lot, whatever you want to call it, that northwest lot, is the park. And so it's part of the Cedarwood Estates Park.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I've heard clearly from, I think, all of you that eliminating the park is a non-starter. But because it's all part of the same site today, I think if you're going to do the PUD, you want to do it all today as a PUD, which does not mean you couldn't do different standards for the new homes and the existing homes, which someone talked about, should you want to do that. But I think you would need to include, I think it would benefit the city to combine all of the lots into a single lot and put it all under a PUD and establish the standards for the PUD, which may be consistent across the board, which is what the applicant's asking for, or it could be something different. But I think it needs to be one site.
You could do a PUD with two different standards of,
Yeah, so we do I guess I can't say for sure in East Bethel if we have, but we often have residential home parks or residential subdivisions, for example, that have detached single-family homes in this part and villa homes in this part and townhomes in this part, and those three different types of homes have different standards. So you could do something similar, and I think we've done that here probably.
right, but they're not different types of homes, they're just redefining the setbacks for one part versus the other.
Call it, you know, you could think of it as phase one and phase two. The existing park is phase one, and that's the standards that apply to phase one. And the new homes would be phase two, and here's the standards. But again, I think the reason it needs to be the same is that northwest lot right now is part of the park. This is now part of the park functionally. They're all under the same ownership. So we want to get them all platted together. I think that's a positive for everyone. It eliminates some other nonconformities, which include homes that cross lot lines, which is under the building code problematic. So that's a positive. I think the question is, for the Planning Commission, I would highlight that, you know, if this was developed under the R5 standards or R2 standards, there's a 15-foot separation between homes. They're asking for 20. You know, again, we're talking about different construction types, a stick-built home versus a manufactured home park, but again, for context, that's what they're asking for. And if the commission is just not, I think what the applicant's asking for, if we're not interested in any flexibility, then they want to hear that now. They'd rather have a quick no than a slow no. If you think there's some value to establishing new standards and eliminating potential variances and allow opportunities for improvement, then you might say, I am supportive if I get X, Y, and Z. To your point, what are we getting for this? You know, we don't have a lot of information, so it feels like they're asking for a lot and not giving a lot. All fair things, but back to your question, I think it should be done as a single PUD, regardless of whether you apply different standards. And again, a PUD is a new zoning district, so they are not proposing, staff is not proposing amending Chapter 38. That would still apply to the other park. We are not proposing to change that. We're asking for a PUD to establish new standards for this park, just so we're all on the same page.
What are the improvements that you mentioned that this would allow for?
Oh, improvements, just meaning that somebody down here, in theory, if we adopted new standards and this homeowner, who I don't know, wants to replace this house, maybe it's just needs to be replaced, adopting the PUD would allow them to replace it. If we don't adopt the PUD, they would need to come in for a variance and meet the three-pronged practical difficulty test, which is challenging, as you know.
And the other option is that it just exists as it is without
And, yeah.
any ability to improve it.
But when you say improvement, do you mean making something larger that even encroaches further on this already small setbacks?
Yeah, when I say that, I don't necessarily mean that. I just mean maybe it's an old pre-78 manufactured home which does not have great insulation, you know, it's not a great home. They might replace it with a modern home that's gonna have better insulation and be a safer, more valuable home. I don't mean expansion. In my scenario, I just meant replacement of like.
So what type of precedent does this set for the other park in the northern part of the city?
I would say, and I think the city attorney would agree with me, it does not, because this is a negotiated zoning district with this landowner on this site.
With
It's-
these unique circumstances?
Yes, it's called contract zoning. We sometimes refer to it. Attorneys don't generally like that, but that's how we often refer to it, because it's this site, it's sort of horse trading.
Right.
We'll give you this in exchange for that. And it's come up tonight, we don't know what that is yet. I think the applicant's just saying, is it worth spending more time to come up with what that might be? Other than, we know they would get some reduced setbacks. We think we would get 33 potentially new homes on our sewer system, which helps pay for our sewer system, brings some income, adds property to the tax base. But should we ask for more than that? Perhaps we should ask for more, like a plan to bring the other homes online, to add more perimeter landscaping, to eliminate, you know, things like that home that's in the right of way over time. I've lost my, you know, I don't know what else it might be. I would look to you, but, you know, things that come to mind immediately are perimeter landscaping or fencing to do some screening. You know, a new park, an improved park. You know, if you've been out there, that park's kind of limited, I'll say. You know, what the PUD could be is a better park that's privately owned and maintained. I don't know what the answer is. It's not necessarily my job to figure out what those benefits are. The applicant should propose that, but you could tell him, if we were going to support this, this is what I'd need to see, or I simply don't support it, no matter what you did. There's nothing you could do that could get my support. So I think there's some of you in both camps, and so I think tonight we just, you know, maybe individually kind of summarize where you're at and the deal breakers for you, and maybe that's the best we can do tonight. Because as you've mentioned, there's a lot of stuff we just don't know, and they can decide how to proceed from there.
So this is going to city council in a few weeks again. It just seems hard for me to believe that all this information is going to be in yet. I mean, is it possible that this is going to come back to this body again, or is this kind of our chance to say what we would like?
Yeah, for both. So what I would say is, it is not implausible that the applicant could get some positive feedback from the council and decide it's worth them refining the concept plan before they come back with a formal plat, rezoning to PUD and PUD development plan, because that's a pretty expensive proposition. So it's possible that they could come back with another concept plan, which would mean it would come back to you and you'd see how they incorporated your feedback and the council feedback. Again, assuming council was supportive. They have the opportunity, though, they could take this concept plan feedback and immediately go to the formal application, which would come back to you for a public hearing again.
Okay.
So,
And if I could just interject briefly, you know, we intend to obviously, you know, go forward to the city council to get the same type of feedback. And, you know, we're, in this process, we're pretty much strictly looking for advice. And I think one thing Ms. Lindahl noted is very important for us, which is, you know, if the commission doesn't see value in this and, you know, there isn't really a motivation or an appetite for this kind of flexibility and embracing this sort of a project, that's valuable to us. We would certainly prefer that it be the other option because, I do believe that this provides some significant benefits to the city. I think probably the preeminent benefit is connection to municipal services, especially for expanded sites, but also if there can be some sort of mutually agreeable development agreement provision to connect on a phased timeline. I think that's a massive benefit to the city that I don't see occurring without that, quite frankly. So I think that's an important benefit for the commission to consider as well. I think the affordability of additional affordable housing in the city is a significant benefit that shouldn't be taken lightly. And I also think that as part of any development of this property and any planned unit development, we would certainly commit to updated landscaping. We would certainly commit to, replacing aging homes, for example, if unit owners wanted to. Those would be things that could certainly at least be allowable under the planned unit development framework. So I think those are just a few of the benefits that the commission can consider, and we would also ask the city council to consider as well.
My main comment would be to have some plan that actually shows an improvement of quality of life by probably having to eliminate some of those homes, maybe 3 of them, to be able to fit a park and or a cul-de-sac if that's needed for this fire safety. But that, to show something that's actually making it better for those who are living there currently, as opposed to just trying to pack in as many units, but finding a balance to achieve both somehow. And thankfully, Ms. Lindahl gave a good reason for doing the PUD on the other areas, which I didn't perceive. So address that issue will go a long way toward making it an acceptable plan.
Thank you for the feedback.
Yeah, for me, I would say, yeah, it's a good plan. And thanks again for giving a bit more details that they answer a little bit of what I have. But yeah, if you can just give, like, either come back with a bit more details, like a real plan instead of, this just have a lot of questions for me. But yeah, I think it's a great plan, for the city. So yeah, that's why I stand a little bit more details. But yeah, for me, I think it's a good plan with some of the good benefits.
Thank you for that feedback as well.
Yeah, if you could answer some of the unanswered on that requirements for Chapter 38 table that's been drawn up, I think that would be very beneficial. As far as, if the existential situation came up that a double wide was wanted in place of a current, maybe have a sort of a plan of action or contingency set up to accommodate those residents. Yes, and I would really encourage you to not take the park space lightly. I think that would really speak volumes to any proposal that you want to bring forward into this development. As far as the sewer and water setup goes, yeah, I would encourage you to get some sort of a plan laid out where you have, some estimates at best as far as, timeline, cost, and, the start and the end, and what that would all include. Do you have financing kind of in the make, and are you talking with the city about costs that might be considered with this?
As part of a development agreement?
Yes.
Yeah, that's certainly obviously subject to discussions with city staff and the city attorney, but I would expect that a development agreement would, control a lot of development as part of this planned unit development. As far as costs for the project, I wouldn't feel comfortable giving a number at this point, on that, but that's something I can note for the future, sort of what the cost of a project like this would simply look like, at least an estimate. If it would be helpful to, certainly the city would have expenses that I anticipate the, developer generally covers as part of development agreements, but that is certainly subject to further discussions.
Okay. And more to the wetlands and the stormwater, I think that's something that you're going to need to address with a little more certainty with this kind of expansion proposal.
I appreciate that feedback, and and I'm not sure if I mentioned this yet, but I did receive some information from my client that the existing wastewater treatment facility has the capacity to support 30,000 gallons of wastewater per day. Currently, the park uses about 15 to 17,000, so it's far below capacity. And obviously, as part of this, if it would be a condition of the city to connect the expanded sites, to municipal water and sewer services, then it doesn't matter, that capacity, because it wouldn't be supporting those additional home sites. But that's one number that I did want to note just for information. Well, thank you all very much for your feedback.
Thank you very much, and we're not in a public hearing right now, right? So if you could just sit down if you'd like, unless you guys have anything else you'd like to say to Mr. Hardy. And then we'll talk among ourselves a little bit yet. Okay. So
Thank you all for your feedback.
So, it seems to me that we're not ready to give a total thumbs up or total thumbs down at this point on the PUD. Am I right on that?
I think so, yeah.
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 Yep.
Yes, that is correct.
So you're not totally against this?
Well, what's presented I am, but as far as what can be revised.
Right.
That's all we can do is provide our feedback for that.
You're such a good negotiator. So, yeah, okay,
Yeah, that was well said, Glenn. I mean,
yes,
no, but, it's an interesting idea, development, more homes, so, but, yes, some revision.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Um,
think, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different questions to be answered, but in general, from our perspective, I mean, and then new development is always good, so.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously, I'm not a good negotiator and I'll show my hands, but I'm in favor of this. But I do think that there are some things that are really important also. And we've all talked about recreational space is really important. We're not seeing a lot of wiggle room on that. Agreed on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. You talk a lot about landscaping, yes, as kind of the flag. And I'm thinking that's not really the flag for me. The recreational space is. And the sewer is,
For the city standpoint.
and what,
For the city standpoint, it is
for the city center,
the sewer.
yes.
Yep.
So, where's our minute taker? I said, where's our minute taker is out, but you are too. I just want to make sure that we're kind of working on the points right now that we really want to make sure that are in the proposal or the plan. What else?
Quick question, with the sewer, I think I heard it from Glenn, but, I think the gentleman over there mentioned it as well. So the sewer will be going over like someone property, right? To get to the city sewage?
I think the comment was on this, where's my key? losing my mouse.
The current situation is
The
that
current
they're,
situation is there's, this piece of land here separates this park from the treatment system that's up here
Okay.
today. I know our wastewater treatment plant is in that same vicinity, but I'm not sure if there's a pipe that would connect somewhere else. I will have to check that before council and confirm where the pipe ends today. I don't recall off the top of my head whether connecting to the city system would require crossing the same property or if there's a way to get to it somewhere else. I don't know, but I will have an update for the council.
Okay,
Arnie
thank you.
seems to know the answer to that.
You have to come across
Same piece?
Father
Okay.
property. They own the 26 acres between that and
To the north. It would extend to the north across this property that this came from. Okay.
okay, and then also a plan for emergency vehicles is really important to most, or if not all of us, I believe also.
Yes.
Yeah, good.
Is there anything else, Mr. Negotiator?
No, I think we've covered it.
You did, okay. And from this end?
Yeah, I'm good for now.
Just meeting all the requirements in chapter 38, I'm really wanting to see some answers to those. So if they can include that in a revised concept plan, that would be very helpful.
I just don't know how that could happen, though.
Well, I mean, these are estimates, right? So I mean, kind of get a general idea. I mean, with the sizes that they were proposing for setbacks and units and lots, I think that they can get some pretty close estimates with some of these things, like open space overall, none shown. Well, if they're proposing 10-foot setbacks on a 16 by 76, that's pretty simple math to come up with that number.
Right, but you said, oh, just a second.
All right.
Are you okay?
It passed.
People don't even want to be up here. But you did say that on the new developments, it's 15 feet between houses.
In the R2 district, yes, it's a 7.5 foot
7.5
side
foot
yard setback.
foot setback. I mean, so I'm looking at that and saying, well, this is even bigger, because they're proposing 20, and
Right.
15 between houses is
Better
their standard.
construction, though.
Different construction.
Right.
Right.
So could be a fire issue if you have flimsier construction that is more prone to flame up.
Mhm.
You would want that separation.
But I think that the fire chief kind of gave his tacit approval, I believe.
Yeah, I think we'd get formal comments with a formal application, but that was not a concern that was noted.
It was not?
Again, I would always say fire would always rather have more separation
Right.
between structures. But this was not a red flag for them. They talked about hydrants. There are hydrants there. They thought getting to the city water system could be a benefit by providing better water pressure, and that would be helpful for fire suppression should there be a fire. And they acknowledged that the vinyl construction of a manufactured home might go more quickly than the vinyl construction on a wood frame home, but that both, if they're on fire, are going to melt
Go fast.
quickly, right?
Yeah.
They're concerned about fire, but they felt that access was okay, and adding, connecting to city water could improve firefighting ability by improving water pressure. So we would certainly get formal comments with a formal application, but there was no no from them. Is that fair? Makes sense?
So Brian, what is your main reason for wanting to stay with 38, chapter 38, as opposed to the Minnesota standards?
Well, those numbers, they just seem, well, they're larger than what's being proposed. So, I guess I just see those as established and comfortable right now. And so I'm thinking if those were lessened, that same comfort wouldn't be there, I guess. It's just maybe more of a general impression as opposed to how it will actually be, but
Is it aesthetics, is it safety, or?
safety's my concern, I guess. You're speaking to the vinyl melting equally as fast on both wood homes as they would on manufactured homes. It's fire is very hot, and when things are close together, there is a lot of damage that will take place. So I guess that's maybe where my chief concern is coming from. The other thing was the different sizes being allowed in the park. I think the concept plan should address that for if double wides are ever wanted. I think that should be something that's included in the plan.
So how would you word that in our advice?
I guess ask that the applicant consider moving from single wide to double wide, and where opportunities for that could come from.
Okay.
So I don't know how that's possible, given the reduced setbacks that they're asking for. So, I mean, that, it would be good if they address that, but I don't see how they would do that in this, what they're proposing. But I also want to say another reason about the setbacks. Besides whatever the practical reasons are or aren't for having them smaller or larger, it's in our code. So the proper way to do that is, if it's not practical to have that in our code, we should change our code to reflect a better, if there is a better understanding, or maybe there's a good reason why it is the way it is. But to just kind of cavalierly say, well, it doesn't matter because they want to do this, then it's like, what is any of our code? You know, why do we have a code that has specific numbers if it doesn't mean anything? So if they have a good reason why that shouldn't mean anything or should be amended, fine, but if it's just because we want to put more homes in there, period, then I don't know why we don't uphold our code. You know, change our code if it's not correct.
But with the PUD, we kind of have that opportunity to not be compliant with the code in this case.
We
if
have
we're
an
getting
opportunity,
something.
if you want to call it that, but it's more like we have a way to get around it, rather than, because I don't see, again, yet what the benefit is. Usually when you do a PUD, it's because you want to create open space, trails, there's something that's going to affect the quality of life positively for the city, rather than we just want a developer to be able to get more homes in there. So I'm saying is, if that is in our code, there may be a reason for that. I don't know what that reason is because I didn't write that code. But if we're going to change that, maybe we should find out why that is, so we know whether it makes sense to not follow that or to follow it.
So here we are. Go ahead, Brian.
I don't know. I don't know where to go from here. Again, we've all seen that there's some things we like and some things that we have concerns with. So, as far as advising the applicant goes, you know, we've touched on parks being of concern, the sewer and water being of concern, and the plan for EMS. Can we just advise them to address those, revise their concept plan and present to us, and then we can go from there?
Right, I'm thinking that's kind of where we are too. Are we okay with
Yeah,
that?
I think we have good feedback. I think the applicant heard the concerns. I think they heard the things where there is support and the things where there isn't. I've taken a lot of notes. We'll have minutes. We have 3 council members here who are hearing it firsthand as well, and we'll see what their feedback is, and the applicant can decide how to proceed from there. I think you've given good feedback. This is a complicated item for the reasons you mentioned. There's a lot of info we don't yet have. And as the applicant said, in part that's because they want to understand if it's worth doing that work, if there's any support for this or not. It is a challenging site. It's an old park, and there's a lot of nonconformities in there. And so, these are residents of East Bethel, and I think we want them to be able to improve their homes. And I know I've heard this Planning Commission and Council have concerns about forcing people to come in front of the council for variances. And so this was a path forward. And so I think they've gotten feedback. I think they heard that a PUD needs to be a give and a take, and we need to get something, not just give something. And they need to go back and decide what they're going to do with that. So I think you guys did a great job on a complicated item. I think the council has your summary here. There are several things you want to see. I think you stated it very nicely, Madam Chair. We're not ready to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. We need some more information. I have a list of the information you guys want to see. So I think it's enough.
Great. So with that, I think we're just going to make a recommendation of nothing, no recommendation right now of either recommending a PUD or not. With or without the conditions, I think that the minutes are going to reflect what we're really interested in. I do want to thank the council members and the mayor for being here tonight, because I can't imagine having to listen to this meeting, I don't think that actually there's going to be a way to listen to it, is there?
Hopefully we have it verbal, yes.
Okay,
I don't have a live feed, so none of the public is seeing this right now, but
Right.
hopefully we'll at least get the verbal, yes.
exactly. So I'm especially glad that you're here tonight. And for the people in the chairs today, thank you also for your patience. This is a complicated situation, and it took us a long time, but it's a really important situation too for the city. So thanks for your patience. Anything else we have?
No, I think you've summarized that. The recommendation to the council is we were able to provide feedback from the Planning Commission, but not a recommendation.
Mhm. Okay, is there a staff update?
The only update is that we do have a meeting in January. I think right now we have one public hearing for our January meeting, so.
The one that was tabled tonight?
Oh, we have 2 items.
Okay.
You're right, 2 items. That one and a conditional use permit for a cannabis business. So we'll have 2 public hearings in January. And then the newest commissioner's term is up at the end of January. So we'll see where that happens in February. So it's just filling a vacant term. So we'll have to get that in front of the council and get that seat appointed or refilled.
Okay, and it has, so we have one vacant one right now?
Yes.
And one coming up for renewal? I mean,
Yes.
other than that?
Yep.
And whose is that?
That would be
Commissioner Taz.
Oh, yours,
Tia's.
oh,
Tia.
Tia, yeah.
okay,
Commissioner Tia's.
sorry, I missed that.
Yes.
And I will not be here in January, and Mr. Jorgensen will be taking over as the vice chair. Any other things anyone wants to bring up? If not, is there a motion to adjourn? Anyone? You want to stay?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second the motion.
Great, fabulous. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That motion carries. So thank you, everybody.